And we are live now. Hello, everyone. So I was mentioning this earlier to our authors that I've done a lot of, plenty of this kind of live stream events for books and publishing, and yet each time I feel awkward, especially in this beginning part when we're slowly watching the number of views going up, and we need to say something and be cool so people don't leave the stream. But in any case, welcome to our live party in which we are going to talk about the book that came out today, Slavic Supernatural, this one. So,
Yay! If I can be so impolite to introduce you, your name is Antonia. So this is Antonia Mezhnaric, the author and editor who came up with the idea of Slavic Supernatural. My name is Vesna Kurilic. I'm the other editor who helped bring Antonia's vision to life. And if you could just the other authors, could you please introduce yourselves? Just let us know what your names are and the title of the story, which we've published in this anthology.
And you should.
Hi, I'm Petra Valkovic, and my story's name is Morana's Song.
Hi, my name is Robert Norok, and my story is Kresnik and Zlatorog.
Hi, I'm Srebka Peregrin. My story is Out of Linden and Oak They Made You.
Hello. My name is Greg Gajek. Well, actually the name is Gregor, but nobody can pronounce it, so it's Greg. And my story is called, what is it called? What the best tree thing?
Yeah.
Sorry. I believe that's what it's called. I don't know.
No. I was already a bit worried that you will all know your title names. Because I know I'm sometimes really, really bad with titles, and when someone asks me a name of my story title, I can sometimes be like, "Oh,
it's a story.
No. It's a story. It has a title." So yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you just 2 seconds about the publishing house Striga before we go to the other part of the live stream, to the authors, to the stories, the reason why we're here today. So we're like a small publishing cottage from Rijeka, Croatia. We have been we existed since late 2020. We were very extreme in 2020, and we chose to become publishers. Antonia and I are the co-owners and the managing team, etc., and the lead editors. So we publish speculative fiction, mostly Slavic-inspired fiction, and science fiction and fantasy.
And we have a comment we're going to show.
So, hi, Micha. She said she didn't want to speak live during this live stream, but she's going to join us for one of our live book signings later this year in Croatia,
hopefully.
It's Miha Trohel from the Czech Republic, a story from the swamps.
And she's going to be in the comment section, so you can, interact with her there.
Awesome. So,
okay. So we're small, really small. The two of us is mostly doing majority of work, but in this case, this is Anthology. So there are 11 authors with their 11 short stories, all inspired with Slavic folklore or mythology. So why Slavic?
Because someone has to.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with a question to you authors. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
For everybody. Why do you write Slavic-inspired fantasy or science fiction? Why Slavic? We could start the other way around now. Greg, could you go first?
Yeah. Why? I don't know. It's just cool, I think. I mean, it's always interesting to sort of explore your own background and your roots, and I think it's very important in in the world that we live in which it's changing rapidly. It has become very global, like global village and so on, and sort of finding your place in this, your character, your nature. I think it's important to many people right now. Certainly important to me, especially because it's a bit of a Poland. I mean, my Poland's in a bit of a dark place right now, and I don't know. It's just, I think it's just really important to know where you're coming from and what you're all about, and who you are and what's your identity. There's a lot of things going on, like about your gender identity, your national identity, and so on. So having these things about your ethnic background in the back of your head helps to just make sense out of all of this. I'm sorry if I'm starting from like a very gloomy and
dark place,
somewhat exalted note, but it's kind of, I think it's just important to me and to many people around the world. So yeah, that's that.
Thank you. Srebrenka, how about you?
Okay, I'm not coming from a dark place. So I'll be the antithesis a little bit to this. I guess, well, I'm a storyteller. So I tell like folk tales and fairy tales. And I started telling them from like all over the world and collecting them. And but then over the course of time, I figured that I'm best at telling like Croatian stories because they're closest to me, because I live here and I know them and understand them better than I do like all the others. And I guess that's why I also started writing things which are more grounded to where I live and where I work and the places I really know like deeply to the bone. So that's why.
Thank you. Robert, how about you?
For me, it started from a place of curiosity, I'd say. I was interested in what our ancestors from these lands used to believe centuries ago, and so I started reading different folklore and tales, and I decided let's try to put a modern spin on them, or some sort of a retelling, and use these elements in my stories.
Nice, thank you. And Petra, how about you?
Yeah, I've been researching mythology since I think I was a kid, but the most interesting thing happened when I was studying at the university, Croatian, and then I discovered Slavic mythology, which I found the most interesting, because I don't know, it's funny how I discovered our tradition the latest. So I began researching and really got invested in the themes and the old gods, and found it so it's not so unifying, and I don't know, it's not like Norse or Greek mythology. It has every Slavic nation has its own branch of mythology. So I wanted to put a twist on it, and I combined bits and pieces of other things to one. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I'd like to keep the tradition of writing our stories. So because it's in our culture, it's in our toponyms, it's in our language, and so
That's true.
How about you two?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Antonia.
I'm just going to say, Micha, you can also answer in the comments if you want. Well, I grew up on it, on South Slavic folk tales.
Yes, that's story.
Yeah.
The book.
I had this little book with this old folk tales that I read and reread, and I just love it. And it's the thing that really, really stuck with me. I mean, I love folklore and mythology in general, and fairy tales, and it's an interest, definitely. But I don't know, it just feels like something from home. And I like now researching it now as an adult, because as a kid, it was mostly fun stories, but now as an adult, I can go deeper into the topic and research it more. And yeah, there are a lot of different versions, and it's just it's a shame that a lot of it is fragments, or simply not well known, or at least, I don't know, East Slavic stuff are more popular and better known than South Slavic ones, and so there's like a lot of interesting things to read and find out about.
Yes. I'm undercover here. I actually don't investigate Slavic mythology. I don't work with Slavic mythology, but I really like local history. I trained as an art historian, aside from being a librarian, and I fell in love with like the geography and the history of especially the Balkan region. So history thing. So, yeah. But I'm really, really happy to help people tell their Slavic mythology stories.
She loves that copy editing. So to show. So Micha says, and I've been also always interested in writing stories, so it goes hand in hand. My search for stories leads me to our actual stuff and history, mythology, etc., and giving me ideas for my stories. Yeah, thanks. I mean, a lot of it is, especially when it's not well known, it can be interesting to share with wider audience, and it can really be really a great well for inspiration, at least in my experience. I mean, we all know Greek stuff, at least. It's so popular that it's really everywhere, and it's constantly coming out, new stuff. I mean, and there is some interest for Slavic fantasy, especially with some of the books and series that are now very popular. But I think we still there's a lot of stuff that's not explored yet, not as some other mythologies. Yeah. So, okay. So we should give our authors more spotlight.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to mention those that aren't Greek and Viking. Yeah, that's
Greek and Viking. That's it. We all know. We can like name. I mean, not necessarily all 12 Hercules' deeds, but like at least half of them. And
so just to mention other authors that are not now with us. This sounded so weird, so wrong.
Mostly because a lot of them are in different time zones and some of them are at work.
So the anthology opens with a short story, The Deep Woods by Josh Reynolds. Then we have Hunting Down the Unholy by Petra Rapajic.
And then
The Gentleman Hat by Ivan Agecek. Death Will See by Laura J. Veligor. Once Upon a Winter by Ivan Botica. Traveling Spring by Lidiana Bunda, and the others are here. So yeah. Thank you all for sharing your stories with us and trusting the small pub house from like nowhere.
You mean from Rijeka?
From Rijeka.
This is vaguely offensive towards Rijeka.
For submitting to us. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now let's hear something about stories. Should we start, since I mentioned that some of the stuff in Slavic mythology and folklore are not as well known. And the thing my mind immediately went to one story, Where the Birch Trees Sing by Greg, because you were inspired by a very, you mentioned obscure ritual. So can you share more about it?
Yes, sure. So I had a whole talk prepared, but I'm just going to scrap it now. So yeah, it all started with me reading about a very obscure ritual known as the Birch Festival. That had been rather celebrated mainly in Russia, and it's known from 18th century penitentials. So the priests from the 18th century sort of had felt they need to I don't know tell people not to do it basically. And this was a very interesting ritual because it was for women only. So that's that's something you don't read a lot about because Slavic cultures are fairly patriarchal, I guess, or at least I don't know the Polish versions of them, whatever. Anyway, so it was this interesting ritual in which women and girls would leave the village and then party together in the woods and sing songs and do magic and stuff like that. And there are theories, even though we only have sources that describe this ritual in the 18th century in Russia, but there are theories that it was more widespread and vastly older. So I sort of took the liberty of placing it in the 9th century or something like that. So in early medieval times and sort of fantasizing about how it could look in practice because obviously we don't have the descriptions are fairly detailed in what kind of offerings were given, like the eggs and the kasha, which are mentioned in the story, and so on. But we don't know like the whole magical layer of it. We don't know the deeply spiritual stuff. So I sort of found it interesting to fantasize about that, and also use it as a pretext to talk a bit about how people fought and talked and show and have shown or had shown stuff related to gender identity, I guess, and sexual orientation, that sort of stuff. Because I felt the need to write about this because I think like here's me being very gloomy and serious again. Sorry about that. Anyway, there is this sort of feeling that historical fiction is very escapist because it shows the world, a simpler world, a world in which there are no gay people, no depression, no autism, and so on. And that's a very offensive. Sorry.
No pneumonia, no coughing. No
yeah, sure. No, yeah, everybody is just there are all just these beautiful muscular Vikings, running around the world and having fun, and this, it's not like that. I mean, only because people like 1,000 years ago didn't know the term, depression or whatever, doesn't mean it wasn't a thing back then. So it's interesting to see how various phenomena were described using folklore, using myths, using legends, using rituals, and so it's like I found it very interesting. So I sort of wanted to show that there was space for for queer folk to function in this theoretically very very straightforward society, very primitive society, very pragmatic society. There was space for gay people, and it wasn't perfect. I mean, that's what the story is about. It's like a perfect system, but they were they lived, they loved, and they had to function in societies, and those societies felt a need to sort of describe, to relate to all sorts of people. So it was just interesting to show all that, and that's sort of that's me talking in a very roundabout and overly complex way of where the story comes from. But to make it a bit shorter and simpler, it's a love story about the queer girls running away from home at school. And I'm kind of proud of how it turned out, and I'll just stop talking now. So go on. I'll invite my co-author to talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I really found it interesting. The story is very atmospheric, very sad, but that's the whole.
Yeah, I'm a ray of sunshine. I'm a ray of sunshine. You can probably tell by now. So yeah, it was a sad story.
Yeah. It is sad, but it's really, really moving, deeply moving, and the way you. I really love. I like learning about new rituals, and this one seems particularly interesting to me, especially because it's so based on womanhood and the different kind of relationship that can exist in this kind of. Society and groups, because some people will just go like, yeah, they're all just like best friends forever.
They were roommates.
But yeah,
in their tent.
But yeah, like you said, gay people always existed, and of course there would be gay girls who would feel a bit differently about the ritual, about their society, and about the situation they found themselves in.
Okay, if I may point my finger at Robert next, I was really, really happy to realize you have chosen to send your story, Kresnik and Zlatorog, to us because we have been following each other on Instagram for a while. Was this your first published story in an anthology, or are you still... Yeah. Okay.
She was like, Zlatorog, yeah, that's the beer.
No, I wasn't. That's blatant lies. No, I was really happy because we had several stories from like Central Europe, Northwestern Europe, from America, and from the Balkan region. But you were the only Slovenian story we got. It's not the reason your story got in. I had to say that because we really, really, really loved it. But I was really, really so happy, and especially because I come from a hiking family. Both of my parents are in a hiking society in Rijeka, and it was like a fantasy story, which is basically a hiking story, an adventure in the mountains in Slovenia. I mean, yeah. So, how did you choose to tell the story of a Kresnik? And did you choose the Zlatorog because it's such a big, iconic thing for like Slovenia, or do you have like a personal preference for mythology surrounding Zlatorogs? Or
yeah, so as you mentioned, Zlatorog is, I'd say, quite popular in Slovenia. Probably one of the most known mythological creatures from the old times. As Antonia mentioned, there's a beer named after him as well. But also there's at least one statue and camps with its name. So yeah, it is quite popular, and one of the most popular stories, folk stories, is also with Zlatorog, which is a story that I used as a base for my short story. So I did a retelling. Basically, in the original story, Zlatorog is a white mountain goat. Its exact species is not defined, but it has big horns of gold, and it also has healing power. So if its blood spills when it falls on the ground, flower sprouts, the Triglav flower, which is red like the blood, and when Zlatorog eats it, then it heals himself and can go away from danger. So it's has an immortality aspect to himself as well. And yeah, this story also originates from the Alpine region. I think in all of the stories, there's a hunter who hunts Zlatorog. He's from the Trenta Valley, which is at the beginning of the Socha Valley, so under Triglav, the highest mountains of Slovenia. And also in that region, I'd say probably because of its geography, it's where the old ways have persevered the longest in Slovenia. So there was maybe a bit of a tangent, not really related to the story, but there was a researcher who went around and found stories from the old faith, which is not really the same Slavic one, but probably still something that remained from who knows when. But anyway, so also the stories of Zlatorog remained there, and I added some other creatures that are not in the original story, in the folk tale, as the Perta or Pierta, as the locals say, which, as an interesting fact, maybe my mother-in-law was still, her parents used, and grandparents used the Perta as a scary lady to keep kids in line.
That's cool. It reminded me of Babaroga in Croatia.
With the Berta or the one?
The one that is used for scaring children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Poland, we have Baba Yaga. And funnily enough, we also have a legend about Złoty Róg, it's called in Polish. So I guess it's the same thing. But it's not the creature, it's only the horn. And you can play on it. It's like made into an instrument and it has magical properties. So it's a funny little interaction between mythologies.
Yeah.
And in Croatia, we have usually the rams have golden horns. So yeah, in our stories.
Miha says that it's interesting how popular the Zlatorog is. That from her corner of the world, it took her quite a while to find Zlatorog in the text she was reading. And so it's like what's perfectly normal and very popular somewhere around Europe, it's like almost unknown elsewhere. So it's like,
but that's why it's great to publish new stories about it, to share it with new potential readers. Yeah, I don't know. I liked Zlatorog. I mean, this sounds like I like the beer, but
I think we prefer Lashko. If we have,
it's all about these horns, huh? No, it was a little adventurous story, and given that there's a Krsnik inside, or Kresnik, the powerful magical monster hunter, that we have another author, urban fantasy series with Krsnik as a main character. It felt like, this is a great story to publish in Anthology, and it feels like on brand for us. Like we have at least one Krsnik story.
We like monster hunting. I mean, he's not necessarily monster hunter, right?
But,
he's like
I oversimplified.
Yeah, I oversimplified. We actually have some real monster hunting in another story.
Since we are currently going through the new cold wave, storms, snowstorms, bora storms, I don't know the situation in Poland, but here it's very, very cold, and it's the time for Morana. So I think Petra, can you share a bit about the inspiration behind your story?
Yeah, I was re-researching the mythology again, and I found even more stories than the first time when I began with. So, of all the things I researched, I couldn't wrap my head around one particular character. So. Because they were all interesting. I have this problem. I don't know when I have a lots of content. I don't know which one to choose. So, so I was listening to music, my playlist on YouTube, and I think I mentioned it. I heard the song "Keep the Streets Empty" from Fever Ray. And then suddenly Morana appeared, because in the video of the song there is snow, and then I saw the character of Morana walking in the snow in my head, and that's when the story went on. So then I put two more of my favorite characters, Stribog, and which is he's a god of wind, and Tatomir, a god of moon, and kind of a trickster, kind of Loki, but I think he's better. I like him better than Loki.
Oh.
She said, "What?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went and wrote a story about how Morana lost her not lost her powers, but released her powers and released the snow and frost and mayhem and everything. So, but it's kind of, it's not all apocalypse and everything. It's a bit funny and a bit it's a bit tragic in a way. It's all sorts of things, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I just found the inspirations in songs and followed it. I really don't have a plan when I write. I just go with the where the characters take me. So so
And
that's it.
and the story is really fun, like an urban fantasy adventure. Yeah, it does have some tragic elements, some sad stuff, but mostly I find it's very uplifting in the end, especially.
And it's
Yeah,
also
more kind of lighthearted. Yeah. Yeah, and even at the end, yeah.
I mean, this book is mostly dark in atmosphere and a bit well, depressing, not in a bad way, but like a lot of stories really went into some dark places. And there's different topics and issues explored in them, and mostly it's really like downer.
Yeah.
And I say, as a person who loves downers, it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
you know.
And
But it's a good thing to like mention.
Acknowledge, yeah.
Acknowledge. We need to
Acknowledge,
acknowledge
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And also Petra, Micha agrees with you. Just like follow your heart when you're writing. It's
And-
what we try to do, most of us.
Yeah.
And I know that song. I loved it. I loved it ever since I heard it first in the episode of Bones.
Yeah, it was in Bones. Yeah.
Yeah. They killed off a major character while the
Yeah.
song was playing. And it all stuck with me like always.
You as authors haven't probably gotten the chance to read through or see the stories yet, especially because the author copies have not been dispatched yet. As of the recording of this is the live stream. But Petra, your story is one of the rare examples of contemporary setting
Really?
in this. Yeah, we have 2.5 contemporary
Even, huh?
stories.
Okay, check the gentleman.
3.5, sorry. But there's two stories, one of which we'll talk about soon, that tackle recent history and the after effects of recent history on the lives of the characters and the land. But yours is like, Petra, yours is like more of, it could be yesterday, it could be tomorrow, it could be today. But it doesn't. I really like that.
It's probably because I'm a history major, so I really had enough with history. So I write contemporary and I study history. So
Nice.
That's a good combination. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go to Srebrenica, I'm sorry, Srebrenica. I just want to mention that I found it interesting that we had actually a lot of stories inspired with Morana submitted to us. Not all were accepted, unfortunately, but yeah, it was really cool to see how winter and death and Morana in particular was such inspirational figure for people to use. And there's another story with Morana that's Once Upon a Winter by Ivan Botica, and even the story Death Will See by Laura J. Belagor. It's in a way connected to the story of Morana and Winter.
And
Do,
also,
do you think it has anything to do like with you two? Because if people know you and your work with horrors, so they kind
Oh.
of send you stuff you might like.
No, I don't really think
not
so.
yet, no.
No,
Okay.
because those are mostly the work from the people we don't know.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how many people really went into research. I don't know.
We
Maybe
can
they
ask.
did. Maybe they did. Maybe they
Yeah.
saw the name Striga, and the natural conclusion was to use someone who's so connected with Striga. But I really think it's mostly because Morana is so cool, and it's like a figure for Gothic. Everyone
Yeah.
has it in themselves.
I
don't
also
know.
think that a lot of people, especially here in Croatia, who love fantasy and sci-fi, had a goth phase. Some of them are still goths and darkers. We'll call them darkeri. I have no idea what you call them locally, but yeah.
Okay.
On that note, just to rehash this one, dark mythology is the best mythology.
Yeah. And the folklore is so very close to horror, so it's this very short
So-
line.
Srebrenka.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know us and don't know Srebrenka, we've actually met Srebrenka quite a few times because she's Croatian,
Okay.
it's Petra, but we've never crossed paths before.
I met her.
You met her.
Yeah.
After we've collected
it's
the
not
stories.
it's unimportant. Unimportant.
Anyway,
Let's move on.
Srebrenka, your story is very, very depressing.
Oh, thank you.
I was a bit shocked, honestly, because there's this saying in my generation and a lot of generations, like, do we really need to rehash the war for independence in our media? And I don't know. And then you submitted the story to us, and I started reading it, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is about the war for independence. Like, what did she do? Okay,
And
so
you were just no, this goes out the window like immediately.
Yeah.
no.
The problem with the story is that it was a very good story. So yeah.
Very good, very well written. So yeah, no, it's really great. I mean, I know I'm joking about this, but yeah, at some point a lot of our media was really oversaturated by that theme. But the way you
Absolutely.
wrote about it was really an interesting, new, refreshing view. So can you share us something about the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, that's my first story, I think, that has anything to do with any war, because I don't do war stories in any shape or form at all. However, I guess it was, it was just the beginning of the war in Ukraine, and it felt quite significant, I guess. And at one point I was even thinking of using like more of Ukrainian mythology and like fairy tales from some of my research for the books that I published with a friend. But then I just thought, why go so far away? I mean, we've had a war, and anyway, I didn't want to write a war story. I wanted to write an anti-war story. So for that, again, I just decided to stick with something I know. And it's also, the setting is also like the background of Zadar, which is my hometown. I just thought, I'll just, again, write what you know, right? So I decided to do that. It's also a hiking story.
It's true.
Hiking survival, forest husbandry, is that a term?
Yeah, mushroom hunting, sorry.
Tree identification.
There you go. So kind of. Again, I didn't want it to be depressing. But it
depends on the reader. It depends on the reader. I like happy endings.
Actually, I think so too. I had the idea that this was actually a happy ending. That's actually, it's, everybody is really happy about their choices at the end.
Like I wouldn't say depressing. I would say melancholic.
Yes.
Okay, that definitely. Well,
A bit
It's like in the middle of the war, and people have suffered in various ways. So definitely, but really, I wanted to write a completely different story. I already had it somewhere, and I just needed to expand on it a little bit. And then I had this weird dream, with the sticks and the branches and the stuff. So I kind of decided to go with that because I really love that part of Slavic mythology where it says, like people were made from trees. And because I really love, hiking not so much these days, but like walks in the woods. And I really love the trees. And I just thought, I'd rather go with that than some like full-blown mythology. I think this like myths here are quite maybe, in the second or even like third tier, not so out front. Okay, I guess. Yeah.
No, it's like both your story and Greg yours are sort of
Mine
similar.
is also about walking in the woods.
Yes,
Yeah, actually.
Yes. Walking in the woods. So Petra, you walk in the city, and the rest of you walks in the woods. So yeah,
It's very dangerous to go into the woods. Don't do it at home, guys.
Yeah, that's why the woods ended up on our cover.
Yeah.
Made by Antonio Filipovic. With Morana and winter and woods as a commonality between a lot of stories. It was a natural choice for the cover. I hope you like it. And the
cover is great.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah, Antonio is very, very talented. He's like extremely talented. He hasn't even finished his university degree yet. He's working on a graphic novel, a short historical graphic novel, I think. Mm-hmm. We're really looking forward to seeing it. And we were very happy that he agreed to work with us again because he's illustrated a few of Antonio's titles already. So, yeah.
Okay, so
can I? Okay.
Micha, we didn't ask you, but please type us a bit about your story, a sentence or two, if you want to share it.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask our authors who are with us today is, what are you working on right now? Petra, you've been silent for a while. No.
I currently have about 3 WIPs, but I don't really know. I'm just pausing it a bit. So I'm checking all the story content contests, so maybe a shift in direction or something. But I always have something up my sleeve. So if something pops up, so
you've had
currently working on 3 things, and as always, I don't know to decide which one I would like to go further in.
You've
I wait.
You've published not 1 but 2 novels recently in the past couple of months.
Yeah,
is one out already?
Both are out. Yeah, the first one is Zaboravljeni, and the second one is Vraćeni. It's actually about ghosts, so I'm in genre. So it was supposed to be published as 1 book, but it was too big, so the publisher Cranium decided we will separate it in 2 novels. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to read that mm-hmm. way. So mm-hmm. now they're both out. So
they're urban fantasy.
Yeah, fantasy. Yeah, urban fantasy. I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's set in today's time and in the cities, and it's kind of a traveling thing, traveling between worlds. So yeah.
Okay, so they're out in creation if anybody's interested. Thank you. Robert, you have a release coming up really, really soon, don't you?
I have a release in 3 weeks, a bit less, of a children's short story about the Easter Bunny, so some other mythology, who loses her basket and goes then on an adventure again through the woods to find it. And after that, there's another work I'm working on for adult readers. It's a time travel story about a man who tries to who invents time travel. So it's a sci-fi set in modern times, and he wants to better his present, but as it's usually in time travel, he makes it worse.
Yeah. Srebrnka, you had a novel out 3 months ago. 2 months
Yes.
ago? Yeah. How did it go?
Ah, great.
Now.
Great. I'm really happy. So my what do I call her in English? I haven't made up a good elevator for her. But the ambitious whore who solves crimes. So Frina is out, the first part, and we're just starting editing the second one. So that's done. And it will be out sometime later this year. I'm also doing a translation with my co-author of one of our folk and fairy tale collections, so that it can come out in English as well. And still waiting for the past 4 months, I think, for a handbook on storytelling. So no idea when that, but it should be this year sometime, I hope.
Creation publishing.
Yes. Yeah. But
Books
it's okay.
get stuck in a limbo.
Exactly. So anyway, usual like multiple projects all the time, and just like.
And Greg, you've had how many? 10 books published already? Did I get the number right?
I just got to the stage when I get confused, and I'm not sure how many of them are there. But I think 10, 10 novels, and I've just finished another one. It's supposed to be published on during the summer vacations, I think, so around July. So it's a typical waiting time what Polish publishers do. And it's actually also a Slavic story. It's a historical Slavic story about a Slavic princess from the Obudrites tribe. The Obudrites are one of the peoples, of the Slavic peoples who no longer exist. They lived in like today's Eastern Germany. Mm-hmm. So there's a Slavic princess who marries a Viking king. So it's we'll have those married Vikings running around and doing cool stuff. So that's one thing. I've actually got quite a few things on my table right now. I want to work on English on an older novel in English, which I want to sort of redo a bit and try to have it published in English. Then I'm also working on a new novel in Polish, which will incidentally be based upon a Czech legend. So maybe some of you will know it. It's the legend of Lubosha, who's like the Czech queen, like the mother of the state, as it were. She's the wife of the first Czech king, the legendary first Czech king. And she's also, she's also present in Polish legends, because the Polish version goes that she's the daughter of a Polish prince, and then she becomes, the first queen of the Czechs. So it's a very interesting international story topic, and there's a lot of cool stuff because she has two sisters, and she's like this seer, and then her sister is a wizard, and her other sister is like a priestess, and so in the legends. And then they create like country of women only, ruled by women. So there's a lot of interesting folklorish, I don't know, mythological stuff in there, and I sort of want to explore it in a literary way. So that's going to be my new novel, I guess.
Okay.
So
I think
I do hope I'll get to read maybe sometimes something in English, since unfortunately I can't read in Polish.
and if I understand correctly, this is regarding of your princess too. So
yeah, Polish is very similar to Croatian from what I've seen. So you have what was it called? Zloty Rok. That's what it's called. Zloty Rok.
That's Slovenian.
Yeah, so it's called Zloty Rog in Polish. So it's almost the same thing. Slavic languages are actually very similar, only they sound weird. But when you start to read, you sort of see the similarities. But we speak very differently. So that's the thing.
I noticed similar with Slovenian. Since I'm the younger generation, I actually can't speak Slovenian. But everyone is like always saying it's practically the same language. We can understand each other, and I'm like,
we can.
No. But when I see it written down, and when I get time to read it like slowly, and I can like understand it, but when I'm speaking with people, like no, it's just so different.
So Miha asks, is that Kazi, Teta, and Libuše?
Yes, that's exactly it. And in Polish, they're called the same in Polish. And it's Lubosza, Teta, or Teta Mira, and Kazi or Kazimira. That's in Polish. So that's.
Thank you. We have a tiny bit about Miha's story from the swamps. It was inspired by a famous West Slavic tribe that actually plays a role in her book she's working on. And she got to use some cool stuff that she wouldn't be able to use in the book. So she also had Ukrainian on when she thought about writing about for the anthology.
Yeah, I mean, we coincided when we actually first put out the call for submissions. It was a bit like a month before the war broke out. So it really, we got the moment when we like sat down and like, is it really appropriate to continue with this or not? And it was really, I don't know. For Croatians, I think it really sort of hit some
familiarities
from before. I don't know.
Okay. Talking about sad and depressing Slavic experiences. So.
I was actually, if I may share something, I was actually finishing my last novel, which is, there's a lot of war in it. Just as the war in Ukraine broke out, and I really had a very, very depressing moment when I thought that here I am. It was I tried to make it like anti-war because I'm something that a pacifist, I believe. But here I was writing about war, and then just beyond our eastern border we have real war, and it really hit me quite hard, and many of like my colleagues or other writers in Poland, felt sort of the same, and there was this sense of helplessness, and I guess that's on a more cheerful note, that writing about it and writing in a time like this really helped a lot of us to sort of deal with this, and many of our Ukrainian colleagues, because we suddenly started publishing a lot of Ukrainian fantasy stories in Poland, and sort of communicating, because obviously there's a lot of
refugees,
people running away, refugees. Yes, sorry, running away from the war. So on a more cheerful note, there's a bit of this Slavic solidarity right now going on, and it's cool that it's sort of warmed its way into literature, because there's not much more we can do, and it's always good to share your thoughts and feelings and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So we are very, very close to the 1 hour mark. I've no idea if you've noticed. It's sort of flew by for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a quick question, Greg. Would it be okay for you if we left your lecture, not lecture, for some other time?
I think
Sure. Yeah, I've said most of what I wanted in a slightly disorganized way. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I had no idea we had so many things to talk about, actually. And there's only like 6 of us here.
What is math? In any case, if someone in the audience has any questions for anyone here, please leave us a comment now when you have a chance.
Okay. Also, you who are here, authors, do you have any other questions or stuff you'd like to share about the anthology? Or, I don't know, is there something from behind the scenes which we haven't communicated in the Google documents and the comments and the suggestions?
Do you think you'll be making like a sunny Slavic Supernatural
No,
thing?
dark Slavic all the way.
It's not up to us, really.
yeah, that's
We never said to people that we're searching for just dark and
goth
sad
stories. No, we never said goth.
Someone asked us on one event when we talked about Slavic Supernatural before it came out, and asked us like, is there a bigger Slavic spirit felt in these stories, like connective tissue between them, and so on and so on. And we were like thinking about stories that we got and published, and my personal impression is that Slavic people are depressed. Oh no, it's mostly, but yeah, I think there's the oppression felt really here in.
It's a common thing.
Yeah, all you have to do is take a peek at our history.
Yeah.
All of us together, separate nations. We've been through some shit.
Notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going through some shit. So,
Amen. Amen.
We are hoping to collect another anthology in the next few years, but we are still stuck on the title. So
Stuck on the title.
you'll know what we know when we know, and we're
In like 10 years when we get the perfect title, you'll know. Yeah, hopefully not that long. But I don't know. We really liked working on this book, and we hope to do another anthology, but we don't have anything concrete yet. I mean, this is so fresh. It just came out
today.
So. We didn't talked about where you can find the book. So
it's everywhere other than Google Play.
It's available in ebook and paperback. Paperback is currently available only on Amazon, but in 2 to 3 weeks it will be on Book Depository too, which is also Amazon. But it has free shipping in Europe, so it can play a role, yeah, for Europeans. Also, if you're European, please don't forget that Amazon has
regional markets. Because sometimes people are like, I would have bought a book, but then I saw the shipping and I was like, you were on Amazon.com, weren't you? Like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, if you're going to buy from America, the shipping will be quite costly. But there's the German one, the Italian,
and so on.
Probably others. Yes.
And the ebook is really on most of the major players. Amazon also, Kobo, Smashwords, Script, Apple, Barnes & Noble, and so on. So
we have a latecomer. Hi, Ivana. Ivana says, I think it's Ivana Gecek. Hi, Ivana here. Unfortunately, I couldn't join, but wanted to say hello to my fellow writers. It was great listening to you all. Thank you.
Yes, and I remembered that I said incorrectly your story, that it's contemporary. I mean, yes, it has a contemporary, but it also has a historical part. So you played both games, both parts. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone in the audience now or in the future, the endless future, who's going to watch the live as a normal YouTube video later. We really hope you're going to love the anthology as much as we did, putting it all together. And thank you for joining us on this journey. It was like,
Thank you for making it possible.
Sorry?
Thank you for making it possible.
Thanks. We wouldn't be able to do it without you.
Yeah, literally.
I just wanted to also say thanks to Carmen Podrek, who is she's a host of Slavic podcast. So it's a podcast in English about Slavic, obviously, folk tales and mythology. It's very interesting. There's 2 seasons out, so if this is a topic that interests you, and I'm going to guess it is if you're watching this video, please check out her podcast.
She was very generous to join us with writing the foreword for the anthology. So yeah, and thank to Antonio. Find him on Instagram, and let's chat some other time. And to you writers, thanks so much for taking the time to join us on the live stream. Thank you so much for the stories and for all the hard work. It was a lot of work. And thank you, Micha.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're excited. We're excited also, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your work with us.
Yes.
And best of luck with your next
Future plans. Yes.
Yeah. Also, please let us know when any of your other stories come out or your solo novels. We would be more than happy to share the word with our audience.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. One last request. Okay. Could you please, for the closing, for the curtain, say goodbye in your language? Okay. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, go. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Please. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Do
Virginia.
I was so confused.
Bye.